Hello, everyone. This is SloMoExPlo.
Yeah.
I'm Richie Perez,
And Mike Legg.
and this is our podcast on 80s movies, 80s action. We extract the cheese out of all the movies we've watched growing up.
Yes, along with all the ninja movies.
Yeah.
Can't forget with the ninjas.
The martial arts.
Yeah, late 70s, early 80s, and anything that influenced beyond. And they did, show a lot of their talent, and a lot of people, or a lot of directors in the future used their way of the ninja. So
Influential movies that came out with that eventually became the movies like The Matrix or John Wick. I just watched last week, just like and the Marvel movies. All these martial art choreographed scenes must have originated from these movies that we talk of.
Yeah, like John Wick 4 was amazing. As a lot of people seen. And the first part of the movie, all the sword fighting, first thing I think of is all the ninja movies I watched when I was younger. Yeah. It always brings you back to that, right?
Right.
It's not like a new thing for them to come up with. So it's nice to see that movies are using a little bit of everything these days.
And how it's evolved, I guess. So this is our second episode of SloMoExPlo. And if you're trying to figure out what that means, I think it's kind of an homage to most of these movies we watch, because a lot of scenes in it, you see a little bit of slow motion action when they're jumping up in the air and kicking or diving or doing anything, and then the explo is the explosions that we get in these movies, the cheesy smoke bombs and explosions. So SloMoExPlo. And welcome to our show. And just as a discretion, we do announce spoilers. So the movies that we talk about the end scenes and everything. So beware about that if you do not want to be hearing the spoilers. I don't know.
Well, these movies came out in the 70s and the 80s.
It's too late.
Really shouldn't be a spoiler.
That's right.
But it might be a movie that we're talking about that you guys never seen before. Like one we're talking about today is called Gymkata. Mm-hmm. It was a low budget movie, very different. And they do have ninjas, but not many ninjas in this movie. But it got a lot of martial arts, and it's just a different type movie. I watched it. My dad introduced it to me, like he introduced me to a lot of other movies. It was a very interesting movie. I liked it, and I watched it maybe 100 times. And even now, I got the DVD of it. So it's a nice introduction to you guys who hasn't seen these movies. It's not hard to find. You should be able to watch it online somewhere.
Some release it on YouTube if they're old enough. They're free to watch, right? But you can find them online. And if there are any rental places around, or someone's got to have it as a VHS or tucked away in their closet and stuff.
Or if there's somebody local who wants to come by, and I'll let them borrow it for watch.
So we got three. It's an hour. Our episodes we try to make them an hour long. Three. We're gonna kind of analyze three movies or talk about three movies today.
Yeah, and it's gonna be Game of Death, Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee's last movie.
Yes, it's very, I guess, controversial and how they remade or finished the movie,
because that was that was the movie he filmed when he died.
Yes. And I basically only had about maybe 15 minutes of the movie done, which was basically the end of the movie. So the first part and the middle had to be done by stand-ins, and it was very odd. When I first started watching the movie, I had to reach out to Richie. I say, like, am I watching the right movie here? Because it starts off with like a scene with Chuck Norris from another movie that him and Chuck Norris was in, Return of the Dragon. So I wanted to make sure I was watching the right movie. Like, I think I watched this once in my life, and it was a long time ago, so I didn't really remember anything.
Right. And the second movie is, which we talked in our first episode, was Enter the Ninja. And what do you know about Enter the Ninja? I've got some few notes here, Mike. like about some of the movies that we're talking today, and this and I don't know if this is fact or whatever, but these are like gossips and stuff that I'm reading online. This Enter the Ninja was widely considered the movie that popularized ninjutsu during the 80s. It was actually the second major English language ninja film of the 1980s. The first was actually The Octagon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But I mean, you look back at it, and that was one of the main, or one of the coolest or first ninja movies I watched.
Yes, and it was basically in the Philippines. It was shot in the Philippines, and it was basically a white American ninja who dressed as a white ninja against the bad ninja who was black. And Shokazuki is actually the bad guy in this one. It was very strange to see him as a bad guy, because I believe I said the last time I watched Shokazuki in Revenge of the Ninja before I seen this one, and he was a good guy. I didn't see him as a bad guy. It was really strange to see him. It was one of his first movies that he did. He was young looking in this one. And it basically started off as I thought it was like a real part of a movie fight. And the white ninja was basically in training. He was becoming a ninja, and he had to do all these obstacle courses, and he killed all the ninjas along the way. It looked very real. And then he made it to the end, and he killed Shokazuki's character in this part of the movie. And then he gives up. He said, "Die or surrender," and he says, "Surrender." And then he goes and he gotta meet his master, and he cuts off his head. And he goes, and that's it. It's just he goes into the temple, and he kneels down, and he does the ninja stance, and all the ninjas who he killed along the way come in and surround him, along with Shokazuki's character, and the master comes in with the head in his hand of the one that he had cut off, and then he had become a ninja, and but Shokazuki was not happy about it.
Oh, really? In real, like outside of the filming, or
no, in the movie?
Oh, in the movie.
That's kind of where it starts, and you don't like him from there on because you don't consider him as a ninja because he's American.
Oh, I see. Okay, there was a death scene in that movie. I think it was the gangster guy. I think it was one of the top cheesiest death scenes ever, because he gets killed by a shuriken, and he just like falls backwards, and he does this. He raises his shoulders and his hands up. I was like, "Hey!"
Yeah, the guy who wants to take over the land.
Yeah.
He gets the ninja to come to the Philippines and to take out all his enemies, which is basically Franco Nero is the white ninja. His character is his old army buddy. So he goes and visits him after he becomes a ninja, and that's where it all starts coming out, where they're trying to take over his land. And so his friend, the white ninja, picks up for him in a bunch of cases and defeats all the bad guys. So he ends up having to look for someone to try to defeat him. And he ends up getting the black ninja, Shokazuki, to come to the Philippines. And he had killed everybody. He burned down a bunch of houses. He killed his best friend.
Brutal.
And then...
Oh, he killed his best friend, right?
Yeah,
yes.
He ties him up to the tree, and he kills him with the sword, the short sword.
Yeah.
And he cuts his throat.
Did you know that Franco Nero had no martial arts training? He was doubled by the writer and fight choreographer Mike Stone for the fight sequences.
No, I didn't know, and you had told me about this YouTube video, and come to find out, he's Italian. He couldn't even speak English at the time.
Yeah, apparently he was. His voice was dubbed. Cole is apparently the lead ninja guy. He's supposedly originally from Texas.
And I only recently watched it, and he did a really good job dubbing, because it actually looks like him talking.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I looked hard. So Cole's character, Franco Nero, just a couple of things that he was in lately that you guys might have seen. He was in John Wick 2. He was the Italian, he owned it. He was the manager of the Rome building. That John Wick had to go to. Right. He was the manager over there. And most recently, he was in a movie called The Pope's Exorcist, and he was the Pope in it.
Oh, wow.
So over the years, he never just died away after the ninja movies. He's been in a lot of movies. He was in Die Hard 2. So he never like just went away and that was his only movie.
Yeah.
He's been around for a while now.
I looked up his IMDb just recently, and he's still actively acting in movies.
Yeah, nothing like he's never been the lead star or
No.
or I guess he was the lead star in Enter the Ninja.
Yeah.
But other than that, he was just a small part of those other movies.
Right. Did you know the film at the end of the end scene, the fight to the death? It was actually shot in a real life cockfighting ring in the Philippines.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, cockfighting is huge in the Philippines. When I was back there, I was asked if I wanted to actually go with some of my relatives to go watch. A lot of people like to bet. Like it's a kind of a gambling culture with cockfighting, and I did not feel right to go because it's a controversial sport, but it's huge in the Philippines. The film title was chosen because it was thought that it would connect and cash in on the opportunity, whereas Enter the Dragon was called Enter the Dragon in 1973. So they called this one Enter the Ninja.
Wow, and this is the first of the trilogy, which is then Revenge of the Ninja and then Ninja 3, which really got nothing to do with each other other than Shokozuki being in the movie.
Yeah. That's what I don't understand is there is no connection, but they called it like 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Is there a 4 by any chance?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I think pretty much after that, it was like Shokozuki went down and did like
Pray for Death.
Then.
Okay.
So he never really, it never went anywhere. But it's always widely considered as a trilogy, even the director. So, and I don't think it was the same director. I believe it was a couple different directors, but it's always been named the trilogy.
And the filmmakers company, it was called the Canon Group.
Yes,
I think, and it was an American group of companies which produced films from 1967 to 1994. And there were other movies that they produced. The one called Joe, Runaway Train, and Street Smart. But I don't know what other stuff they've done after that. Those were the only ones that I've heard of with the ninja movies. So.
Yeah, I guess if you start watching the 70s, 80s martial arts movies, you might come across them because that's their kind of style of movies that they really focused on.
Right.
And the funny thing about this Enter the Ninja movie, Cole ends up taking on all the bad guys at the end, and he ends up killing the main bad guy who hired Shokozuki's character before Shokozuki, and then they have this last battle, and then and of course there's a girl involved, and he lets Shokozuki, he don't even care about the girl, he lets her go, and then all he wants to take care of is Cole, and then Cole ends up killing him at the end and cuts off his head, and that's it, and. But like I said, it was very weird to me watching Shokozuki die in a ninja movie. Right. It didn't seem right to me at the time, but it's a great movie. Like I said, I must watch this 100 times as well.
That's the same with me. I like Enter the Ninja, even though it didn't seem to be as popular as Revenge of the Ninja. Everyone liked Revenge of the Ninja because of the black clothed ninja, whereas Enter the Ninja was surprisingly a white clothed ninja.
Yes,
that you don't normally see around. But I mean, that must have influenced the G.I. Joe, Storm Shadow, and a bunch of other.
As far from what I remember, that's the only other white ninja that I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Funny enough, is on my DVD, Cole's character has red on on the DVD. So it's a wonder that. They might have went with they were going to go with the red ninja at first, but then they changed their mind and he was white in the movie.
I wonder what do you think why they did that?
I don't know, because I only noticed it there on the cover. I said he got red on and there's no red ninja in the movie. Yeah. So maybe they did the photography first and they decided to go with white afterwards. Yeah. White mean good, black mean bad.
Oh,
that kind of thing.
Possibly. So, because if it was red, that most of the ninja movies you see that wear red portray evil or the bad guys.
Yeah,
the bad people.
Usually white's always the good ninja if there was a good ninja.
That's a good kind of assumption, or a good
I would recommend everybody who's listening to who are be interested in watching this movie is to watch it. And if you guys have any thoughts, let us know, or we'd love to hear some comments and what you think of and what you guys think in general of our podcast here, because it'd be nice to hear back, and we'll go from there and as ways to improve. But yeah, watch this movie with an open mind. It's just it's not an Academy Award type movie,
No.
but it is a good martial arts type movie.
You really got to dumb yourself down to watch it. I mean, we watched it as kids, and that was the appreciation, and that was back in that time. That was leading edge stuff.
Oh, for sure. And
Right.
then you wanted to be a ninja, right? And like we talked about it before. We just we wanted to be a ninja after I go get our nunchucks and sword and go in the woods and play.
Right.
So it was that's what we did as a child. But yeah, enjoy the movie. As I said, I really did, and I always did. And I went back to it, and I said I enjoyed it as much as I did when I was small. So it always takes you back.
Excellent. Gymkata, 1985. Was that when it was released?
It was 1985,
Okay.
and it's basically a game type movie. It's a guy who needs to play a game into this country over Palestine. I think it was. It looked like Palestine. It's over on the other side of the world.
Yugoslavia. Oh, actually, okay. Check this out. There's a town there where they go to play the game, and it says the quote town of crazies were actually crazy people from a local insane asylum in Yugoslavia.
Wow.
Kurt Thomas said, "We provided them with alcohol and a buffet for their time. The people Thomas kicked were stuntmen, however."
Okay. Well, that's good.
That's crazy. Well, that's crazy. Well, that's interesting.
Well, Gymkata is another one of those movies that you probably never heard of. And like I say, it's very interesting. They didn't have a whole lot of money, but a very interesting type story all the same. He is a gymnast, and he's a real gymnast from the United States.
Oh, he was.
Kurt Thomas. Yep.
Did he actually compete in the Olympics?
He was supposed to compete in the Olympics, but the U.S. boycotted the Russian Olympics that year, so they didn't go. So he lost out that year because he was the top of his class at that time. Then they boycotted it. So by the time the next 4 years came, he went to it, but he didn't do very well in it.
Right.
But he's a real gymnast. At the first of the movie, you see him doing his thing. Gymnast. He was competing in a gymnast type arena, and he does well. Everybody's clapping him. And then there's a guy who stops him and wants him to take part in this thing called the game for basically knowledge of the country and to get knowledge of satellites. And like I say, this is, you really got to watch this movie to understand what they have to do. He meets this lady called Princess Rabali. She is from the Philippines. And so Kurt Thomas' character, Jonathan Cabot, needs to get his training for this game. Or basically what happens is if you don't win, you die. You're not coming back. So there's a couple guys who train him. One in particular is a Japanese guy who was a ninja as well in other movies. In American Ninja, he was the bad star ninja. He's one of his trainers in this movie. So he gets all kinds of training, and then he becomes, I guess, good enough to go over to do this the game. And he goes over, and of course, is nothing but politics. And
doesn't his dad enter in the game, and he disappears, and that was one of the reasons why Gymkata wanted to go?
Yeah, basically at the first of the movie when he's doing his gymnastics, it goes to a scene where his father is doing the game, and he's going across the rope, and they try to stop him, and they shoots an arrow at him, and he gets him in the side, and he falls from there.
Yeah.
And that's all you see of him after that. Then it goes back to the gymnastics scene.
Right. The word Gymkata, which refers to Kurt Thomas's fighting style, is never actually mentioned in the movie. Like, there's no description on his martial art.
No, I guess it's something that you would have had to read after to find out where you got that movie from or the name of the title from.
But you do see it in the movie, and it's a really cool fighting style because there's a scene in it where he gets on this this pedestal or this concrete thing when he was getting all ganged up and circled by all the enemies, and he does this Olympic kind of thing where the saddle,
the horse,
the horse saddle, and he starts kicking everybody with his legs, and it's one of the memorable scenes that I remember. He just like he's like a little like spinning thing there, a fan or whatever, and he just kicks all the people that are trying to attack him. And I remember in scenes when he's running around through the town that the props or the stage scenes are set up so that he can like flip around and jump around. There's like poles in alleyways where he can jump up on it, and he swings up and down and kicks people.
Yeah, he takes a couple of the enemies out, and then he ends up taking out a guy on a bike by mistake. It was an accident. And it was funny to see that. Like, he could have just wiped out all the bad guys, and he ended up kicking this one guy off the bike.
Right.
And he just added that in there for kicks, I guess.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it was like a pole like that there. He was able to do a spin around and take on take all the bad guys out, right? Because he wouldn't expect them to be flying or swinging and kicking everybody away. So
yeah, there's a few characters that are memorable. I mean, Bolo Young is that his name? Bolo Young.
Bolo Young. Yeah.
Yeah, he's in it, isn't he? Or
no.
Oh no, sorry. There was a big guy with blonde hair.
Thor.
Thorg.
I think his name is Thorg.
Yeah.
He was also a guy from another country where Jonathan Cabot knew he was in regards of the gymnastics part of it.
Right.
He just knew he was like a legend. He was looking forward to speak with him, and he had no time for him at all. All he wanted to do was win the game.
Yeah.
And he had no respect for anybody, basically.
The whole movie is one of those movies, like if you like rosters or like like Mortal Kombat, or you have like all these unique characters that have their special fighting styles. If you watched Bloodsport, it goes through all of the different characters, and you see them fighting, and you get to pick your favorite ones, but they all eventually get beaten up, and Gymkata is one of the last ones there, but yeah, it's kind of those type of movies where it's like a game, and there's the last man or woman standing. Is what I get out of this. Like Hunger Games, Running Man,
and again, the main guy who's trying to take over the country, he was supposed to be the king's right hand man, and he ended up wanting to take over the land. Mm-hmm. So he went behind him, and he would try. He was killing a lot of the players in the game so he wouldn't win the game.
Yeah.
And of course, Jonathan was the guy who was the main guy who he had to take on at the end. And he had it all rigged up. And then so Jonathan, of course, makes it to the end. First of all, he gets through the woods, and he gets to it's called the Village of the Crazies. And there's a lot of mental patients, and that's where they put them in this village. And really weird scene. There was one that stuck out on me.
Me too.
There was a guy standing, the guy with the two faces.
Yes.
And he's just right still, and then all of a sudden he comes over, and Jonathan got to defeat him in a fight as well.
Right.
And you look at him, he's got two heads. I'm like, man, where did they come up with this one?
Yeah, that was a creepy scene. When we talked about this movie, that was the first thing that you and I brought up was, remember the guy with two faces?
Yeah.
And it's actually a guy with a mask on, but he's wearing it on the back of his head. So there's a scene where he's looking outward, but he's actually facing the opposite way. And then he turns around, and it's his actual face, and then he walks off and stalks Gymkata.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was another scene where there was a guy who tries to attack him, and he can't get any hits on him, and then all of a sudden he just cuts off his hand. So it's just a bunch of weird people in this movie, or in this part of the movie, and he's got like I said, like he's on this horse, and he's trying to fight for his life, and he managed to get through, and then he gets trapped in this corner, and there's dogs after him, and there's people after him, and then all of a sudden his dad, or there's a ninja who comes there and grabs him and helps him up out of it.
That's the only ninja that you see on the movie, right?
Yeah.
As much as our podcasts is about ninjas and
along the
martial
way,
arts,
there's
but-
guys showing them the way to go through the woods and everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
There's a guy with like a thing there, but he's dressed
flag.
up as a ninja, but he don't do no fighting. They got nothing to do with it at all.
Yeah.
So he makes it out of the village of the crazies, and his dad it ends up being his dad. His dad ended up surviving that fall, and he became one of the ninjas who helps him get through the obstacles. And then of course he got to fight the main bad guy and wins, and then he ends up getting first of all he gets the princess, and then he gets all the knowledge that they were looking for the satellites and everything. Right. So it's one of those movies too that you really need to watch, and like I say, it was a very low budget movie, but it sticks in your head. And so take your time and enjoy it and watch it.
It was one, like, I can't think of another movie that uses that martial art.
No.
And you know what? Someday I feel they're going to try to reboot that movie, I bet you.
Yeah, with a bit more money involved and a decent character and actor. Kurt Thomas, he passed away in 2020. He had I believe it was a heart attack or a stroke. He was only 65 years old, and then since then they got a bit more of a cult following. And so just have a glance at this one as well. It's a very different movie, but like I said, if you like the martial arts or the 70s, 80s type fighting movies, this is another one as well.
Cool. No, it's great. Went ahead. We could say we'll be right back after these messages, but we don't have any sponsors right now, so we'll just keep going. And our third little talk right now is of course we got to talk about Bruce Lee, even though Bruce Lee wasn't a ninja, but it's martial arts, and he kickstarted the whole martial arts craze. Like, he was one of the main people that started a lot of these movies. Enter the Dragon. And but I want to talk about Bruce Lee's last movie that he filmed before he died was one called Game of Death.
Yep.
And I don't know when this one. When was this one released?
I believe it ended up being released in 1979.
Oh, okay.
It was 4 or 5 years after they actually filmed his little part in this movie.
It took a while.
It took a while for him to get the approval and then get everything put together to make it look like an actual movie.
Yeah. And this was it was weird to watch. It was hard to watch. And Mike, you said you were watching it when you messaged me and said, am I watching the right movie? Because of Bruce Lee dying during the shooting of this film, they pieced together a whack of different things to turn this into a movie. And they also hired another person to replace Bruce Lee. But they've kind of trying to mask to him to make him not look like his character. Like they put glasses on him, and
they made it look very weird. Like, I guess they couldn't try to make him look exactly like him because it wasn't him.
It wasn't him. No.
And like the beginning of the movie, it starts off and it's not him. It's a guy who's doing a stand-in, and I was like, "What am I watching?" I thought it was like a redubbed movie that he'd redone, and because I didn't really know the ins and outs of this movie, I just know that he had passed away. But again, it was all his scenes at the end of the movie. This is what he did, where he goes to that temple and you got to go from one level to another and fight all the bad guys. And it is him for 99% of the time. Yeah. The most noticeable one there is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar being on it, and it's Tatum going at it, which is a little bit of a size difference. But
that was a cool match. You could totally see the differences in size. But a lot of the enemies on this movie at the end were his students, right?
Yes.
Dan Inosanto, Filipino martial arts, who kind of helped progress the Filipino martial arts, was a student, and who else was in it?
I'm trying to get the names in. The one I know was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah.
He was his student as well. Along with even you go back to the very first part of the movie. It was almost like a movie inside of a movie. They were shooting the film with Chuck Norris.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck Norris is at the very first part of this movie. And it's like they're filming inside of a filming of a movie.
Yeah.
So it was very weird. And Chuck Norris was also one of his students.
Yeah.
And like I said, and almost like Shogozuki, watching Chuck Norris getting defeated in the movie was very weird to me because I watched Chuck Norris in Chuck Norris movies where he's always the good guy and he always beat the bad guy. And then I kind of was introduced to Return of the Dragon and Bruce Lee defeats him in a fight. It was very strange to watch when you're used to seeing Chuck Norris win all his fights.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah.
Of course, it is Bruce Lee. There's not many people out there that was able to take Bruce Lee in a fight, that's for sure.
So Kill Bill, if you watch the series in Kill Bill, Uma Thurman, if you see her tracksuit, the yellow tracksuit with the black stripes, that was kind of a tribute to Bruce Lee's outfit in this Game of Death movie. If you watch the Game of Death, you'll notice that he takes one of the motorcycle thugs outfits, or he beats them up and he changes into them, I guess, to disguise himself to get into the temple or to the fights. And that's the suit that Uma Thurman wears in Kill Bill. It's not the exact suit, but that's where that came from. I think.
Oh yes, definitely. And like I said, in Kill Bill, there's a lot of sword fighting in that one as well, and it's just in the same temple type thing as well.
Right.
So definitely Quentin Tarantino went out and made that just like what Bruce Lee did, because that's where he got it from. Definitely.
Yeah.
But like I said, Bruce Lee, made a lot of people, a lot of movies go back to what he did because he was like he's the main karate guy.
Yeah.
Everybody always talks about karate and movies, and everything goes back to Bruce Lee, just like his son as well did movies. And strangely enough, Brandon Lee, who was doing The Crow, ends up getting killed in the movie The Crow. And he had all the scenes done except for the very first part. And a lot of the same thing happened with Bruce Lee. He had a lot of his end scenes done at least, but the first wasn't done as well. So it's kind of the same thing happening.
That's so coincidental, or that the son has also died during the filmmaking of
and they kind of did it backwards. They did the end first, and then the first last, and then they had to have somebody do a stand-in for Brandon Lee for The Crow.
Right. Yeah. If you try to look for this movie online, you may come across all the different Bruce Lee L.I. movies. I think that was what I came across. So I think the person that they hired to replace Bruce Lee on Game of Death went on. He continued doing other movies, didn't he?
Yeah, he was a very young looking guy. He did look a bit like Bruce Lee as well.
The hair.
But it was weird when they would go from Bruce Lee to him in the stand-ins. It'd be like in 2 minutes of Bruce Lee, then 2 minutes of him, back and forth fighting, doing all these scenes. So, like I said, it was very weird to try to keep in line of where you're watching to make sure, am I watching this the right movie? And that's what happened there. But like I said, it took them an extra 4 or 5 years to get this complete and make sure it was going to be clear to the audience to be able to follow.
Right. Yeah. So Bruce Lee he was the founder of the philosophy of Jeet Kune Do. And it is very influential. If you didn't know that, he's got a book out. I had it when I was younger. It was a lot of philosophy about, for example, things about moving water and becoming like water. But he was an influential. I remember when I used to get chased around growing up here and being bullied. I used to say, "Don't touch me, or I'll get my dad to go after you. His name's Bruce Lee." And that's how I used to threaten the kids that used to pick on me. And they wouldn't go near me if they knew that Bruce Lee was my dad and I knew martial arts. So try saying that next time you're getting bullied if people are chasing you. Thanks, Bruce Lee, wherever you are. I guess we're done.
Yeah, I think
this clues
so.
up.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Because, like I said, this is like non-scripted. First of all, so you kind of understand how it's non-scripted.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed this. This is our second episode, and a lot of my friends really enjoyed listening to the first one. And this is just for fun, for something that we grew up listening to, and it's nice to talk about. It's I'm sure like there's got to be more people out there who enjoys these type movies and to talk about.
Right, and we're open to guests if you're interested in coming in talking too. Feel free to send us messages. We can chinwag and talk about certain movies. I had a friend. My friend mentioned he wants us to review this Filipino little person martial arts actor named Wing Wing.
Okay.
You see his video, little skits of him of his movies. Something from the 70s or 60s. He's like a little tiny James Bond Filipino man, and he wears a white suit and he kicks arse. And it could be a possible one to review or talk about, because he could have been he was probably a big thing back in the day.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, so.
Well, definitely going to be something I need to study on. I don't think I've ever heard this guy before.
No, I haven't either. Well, I did about 10 years ago. I started seeing him surface online. It was his movies were from like the 60s and 70s, I guess, or early 80s, and it was like, the cheesiest of the cheese. And
oh yeah.
So.
But again, like him, is something that he loved to do. It was just, might have had a lot of money to put into it.
Yeah.
But it was just that his love of acting and martial arts, and if you enjoy it enough, do it.
Yeah.
It's like everybody else. If you want something to do, or if you love something that you like doing, do it.
Yeah.
It's for fun anyway.
Right. So that clues up our podcast. Stay tuned for episode 3. I'm Richie.
And I'm Mike.
And this is SloMoExPlo. SloMoExPlo.
We'll get it right by the third episode.
By the third episode.
We'll know if this is for sure by third episode.
Right. Okay. And thanks for listening. We'll be back for more.
All right. Take care, guys.